Welcome guys, it's Justice again here from tutorialscamp.com. So in the last video I showed you how you can actually create a hello world application in Java, right? Just like this, and you can compare it and it will work just of right. But now what I want us to talk about is what this thing does, the command line argument that we pass into the main method of our application, right? So as you can see here in our Java file, this is the entry point of our application. So when we first run our application, the JVM will come into this class, right? Tutorials come class here, and then it will look for this main method, and when it finds it, it will check this command line argument, and when it is executing, it will check that, hey, is this guy passing something into his application when he is running it. If it doesn't find any argument that's being passed at runtime, it will just go ahead and then run this whatever is inside this curly braces block of code here, right? So now what does this thing actually mean, right? So in Java, right? So in Java, right, when we are defining how do you call it, a variable, right, we define it with data type and then variable name. Okay, and then variable name. This is how we define the format for defining a variable in Java. Okay, so now what are data types? Data types, they are nothing, right? They are different kind of ways to store data in memory, right? So let's say if you want to store a number in the system memory, what you normally use is an integer, right? And let's say if you want to store the name of someone, you will actually use a string, right? Don't worry, I will do a separate video on this thing, then talk about what these guys mean, right? And then I'll show you. So now what is here is that this is the variable name, and then you will have your data types too. Okay, and that's how we define arrays too. But when we are defining an array, this is the format that we use, right? So you have your variable name here, and then you add this double quote brace. This actually means that, right, this variable here is going to store a different number of data. It's not going to store a single value, right? It's going to store different number. So we can pass, so when we assign this value, we can pass 2 or 3 values into this variable. We can assign 2 or 3 values into this variable, but this one we can assign only single value into it. That's the difference between array and then normal variable. So this is the format for declaring a basic array that will store a single value. And this is the format for declaring an array that will store a lot of values, right? So look at this thing right here, right? So forget about this thing right here, and then look at this thing right here, right? You have just told that this is just an array, right? This is how we declare an array. So look at this thing here, right? This thing represents the data type, and this represents the argument of this guy here, right? The object of this guy here. So this string here is actually this. It represents the data type of this thing. This represents the type of data that will be assigned to this object, right? So this is a string. This is a string, and then we have this thing attached to it, meaning this argument, right, is not going to store a single value like it's not going to store a single value like first, right? No, it's going to store, it can pass, you can pass multiple values like first or whatever, first, second, third. Okay, yeah, you can pass multiple values into it because of just appending this square bracket into it. It makes it an array, right? But you can also pass a single value into it. right? But the difference between an array and a variable is that a variable will store a single value, but array will store what, multiple values, right? Yeah. So just have a that's the format of what is actually going on here, right? So what does this method actually represent, right? So in Java, in if you are from JavaScript background, or you are from web development background and you know of JavaScript, right? When you are defining a function, you do something like function, then you give it a name, get name or something like that, and then you do something like this, right? And if you want your function to accept a parameter, you just pass in the parameter like var good. JavaScript is just a dynamically type, so we don't define data types when we are creating our arrays or stuff. So we just add the var keyword to it and you are good to go, right? So that's exact. So whenever you want to pass a value into this function, or you want to call this function, you in your JavaScript program, you do something like this: get name, and then you pass something like tutorials come to it, right? And then this function will be executed and do anything with this value that has been passed into it, right? So the same thing is what is going on here. This is just a function, right? It's just a function like this guy right here, right? But in Java, object-oriented programming, when a function is inside a class, we call it what? A method, right? So but if you call it a function too, you are not wrong, right? If you are from web development background, you find yourself calling it function, but that's the same, right? So that's the catch, right? So this is just a function like this, right? So when we are executing our application, because when we are executing our application at the runtime, this is the main method that will be run when we are calling this application, running this application in runtime. We need to pass value towards this array, right? But it's not compulsory that I need to pass a parameter out into this thing right here, right? It is actually an optional. It's optional. What is optional? It's either you want to pass to it or what, leave it, right? So in our Java application, we will do something like, when we are done comparing, when we are comparing, we'll do something like java and then tutorials camp, right, .java, right? This will convert this thing into a bytecode, and when we are done, what do? We execute this thing, we run the bytecode that has been converted. So we do something like java and then tutorials camp, right? Now whenever we do java.tutorials camp, whenever we hit enter on this thing, right, the JVM will come into our application, this class right here, and then he will look for this main method, right? And when he look for this method, he will check that, hey, is this guy passing something into this argument right here? So see here, we are not passing anything into this argument right here, so it will cannot edit and then come over and then do whatever is inside these curly braces. Okay, it's very basic and you need to understand it. It will do whatever is inside this curly braces, right? But if our application, our file here is accepting an argument, then we need to do something like this, right? So we do something like args and then let's say 0, right? So because this is a strange, right, this is an array, you actually refer it as what, we access it with the first index value, we start from 0 onwards, right? So when we add this thing, when we do this, it actually means we are accepting the first value that will be passed into this argument. Okay, so if you want to pass something into our file, then we do something like hello world or hello, right, or justice, and then it will so when we do this, right, the compiler will see that, hey, this guy is what running this application right here, but he's not only running it, he is passing something into this main method, right? So when the JVM run the application, it will copy this justice here, right, and put it here. It will add it something just for reference. It will add it something like this, and then you come system.out.println. When you pass it there, then you will come and execute everything. Then you see system.out.println, which means print something on the console. So it will print something like hello world, and then the result will be, it will print hello world, and then the argument, which is this guy here, right, that has been replaced here. So we'll print something like hello hello world, and then this argument right here, which is called justice, to print hello world, and then what, justice. So this will be the result of what, this code. Okay, so it's very simple, and you need to understand it, right? If you know how to create methods and in a function in JavaScript, then it's really easy to get it, right? It's it's this nothing. The catch here is that whenever you run your Java application, right, it will come into the main method, and then if you are passing something in your application like this, it will pass that thing into the argument of the main method right here, and then execute it right here. Okay, so let me show you a real world example of how this thing actually works. Okay, so definitely we'll do something like this, how it should be, and then ax. Okay, so when you save it, meaning we are passing something to our distance, right? But I told this an optional, you can decide to pass it, but once you are accepting value here, you need to pass into it, because if you don't, you are going to get an error. So save this thing, right, and then open your CMD, and then compile the application. So do something like, maybe let me navigate to my desktop, and then the file name is java tutorials.java. okay, if you hit on enter, it's going to compile it. Right, the compilation, I've talked a lot about it, right? So it is done converting our Java syntax into bytecode. Now we need to run our application, but be careful, right? Because we are running our application and this is accepting an argument, we need to pass an argument into this, right? So we need to do Java and then the class name to that's wrong, to tutorials camp, right? So at first, this is what you were doing, okay? That's, you were not passing any argument into it, so we were just leaving it like. But now, because we are accepting an argument here, okay, we need to pass that argument into it. So let's do something like, let's enter my name, let's pass my name into it, justice, and you can see we have gotten hello world justice here, right? So now imagine we do not pass any argument into it, we should get an error. Let's do something like this, Java tutorials, right, and then hit on enter. You see, could not find or load main class tutorials caused by Java, and then class not found exception. This exception, you will get it a lot, right? tutorialscamp.com, right? Because it is this main method is expecting what? It's expecting what? An argument. But when we are running it, we do not pass any argument into it. That's why it is complaining, right? So that's how it is. It's really easy, and you guys need to understand it that way. It's really easy. That's how it actually is. Now you may ask me, okay, Justice, I have passed only one argument into it, right? Let's say if I want to pass many arguments into it, like I want to pass my name like Java, and then I want if I do tutorials camp, and I want to pass my name as Justice, and then my age 2 into it, then will this be possible, or I'll get an error? this will actually be possible. It will take the first argument and then leave the first one. Okay, so that will not give an error. It will just take the first one into it and then print it here. Okay, and then leave this one. This because you are passing two argument into this what method, right? The parameter right here, right? And we are taking the first one. We are taking the first one here. I'll show you how to look through an array and you'll get a basic concept of what is going on here, right? So and then you will get that's going. So but what if you want to print all the element argument that will be passed into it? Let's say if we pass another argument to it, let's say 5 or 3 argument, how can we grab it? The way we can do that is to actually use something called for loops and then print it out, right? So you can do something like for. I've not shown you this, but don't worry. Okay, I'll show you earlier. I'll show you. So you can do something like I equal to 0 and then I is less than x dot length and then I is plus plus. You don't need to understand what is going on here, but some of you know it already. I'll show you what is meant by for loop and how to loop through other elements, right? So now if I've done it, what you should do here is that and then print dot I, right? You just print the I element here, and now we need to actually compile it first. So we need to do tutorials. Oh, sorry. You need to do java compile tutorials comp.java. Okay, you see it is comparing, right? Int I and this and this and that. It's comparing. Why? Because in Java we use data types here. Okay, I've actually done a lot of mistake, right? So that's what we do in Java. Every variable that you define must have a data type. So let's actually where is it? I want to copy it and then okay. If I copy it and then run it again, compile it, I'm getting 3 errors, right? The reason is this. This is what we pass in it. Don't pass that shit there. This is not a comma separated value, right? Sorry for that. That's how it is when you learn a lot of programming languages. You end up confusing yourself, right? Then hit on enter. Right, you see it has compiled successful. Okay, so when you are done, then it has compiled successful. So now let's actually pass in many arguments into it, like tutorials company. Let me pass my name, justice, my age 23, and what up, social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, Twitter, and then click on hit enter. Right, you can see it as well. Hello world, justice, hello world, my age, hello world, Facebook, hello world, Twitter. Okay, it has printed everything multiple times. Okay, so that's how exactly it is, how to look through the argument that is being passed into this thing, right? Don't worry about what was going on here. Okay, it's actually how we look through an array of elements, right? I've not talked of an array and other tips, but I will show you what is meant by for loop, while loops, and other couple of things, and you will understand it, right? So what I want you to know is about command line argument in Java. Okay, it's basically used to what pass argument into your Java application. Okay, that's the very basic understanding of it. So thank you guys for watching, and then have a nice day. If you have any comments, let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you and then help you out, right? Also, if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and then hit the bell button so that you'll be the first person to see the next upcoming Java tutorials, right? Thanks for watching, and then have a nice day.